got to work on my clap sync.
Not my problem.
So I guess we may as well just jump into it. Today we are going to be short one person. Brian, as some of you may know.
He's gone and had a baby.
He's gone and had a baby. Yeah, I think it was Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
That I just judging by the Instagram post, Lani gave birth. Zola is his name, and we're obviously all super excited and happy for him. But he's being a dad, so he can't be here today.
Super dad times for the next ever.
Yeah, it's so the next show after this one's going to be in 2 weeks. So I'm very interested to see whether we actually go ahead and do the show because, I mean, you'll appreciate, Joe. Like for the next 2 months, it's gonna be mayhem.
2 is different than 1, kid. So I don't know how anyone does 3 or more.
So it's funny. I've heard some people say the third one is easier than the second one, which is easier than the first. So it's sort of the more you have, the better you become at it. But
I guess
from my experience, 1 is harder than 2 because there's 2 of them. So it's simple math.
Yeah, I guess. I guess once you have 3, then you need another parent. I think one-on-one is the possibility of one-on-one works pretty well. I think as soon as you've got a third one and you're like, how do you divvy up your time?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've got a buddy here in Hobart who's just 1 kid, and he often says to me, "You guys are always on. You know, we can take a break. Me and my wife, we can take the kid and share it, but you're always on. How do you do it?" So yeah, with 3, it must be next level. Anyway,
good luck to him.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have him back on the show soon. So what we thought we'd do today is just have a chat about your workshop, because I know a lot of people are interested in this. I was going back and looking at the numbers for the shows. The one that we titled something about your workshop is our second best performing show behind the one titled Imposter Syndrome. So clearly we have a lot of
they go well together.
We have a lot of unconfident people who want to hear about workshops listening to the show. But yeah, so I'm just really interested, and it sounds like everyone else is interested to hear how that's all going/gone.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just because it's been such a long-running saga. Everyone's just trying to find out who killed Mr. Burns. Yeah, so we're in. Today is the first day of actually working in the workshop. You might be able to hear, I'm not sure if you can hear, there's a sando happening in the other room, but we are kind of soundproofy to a point.
Sorry, as in a palm sander?
Yeah. Orbital sand is happening.
Just hear it. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I can't see it. The microphone's not picking it up, I don't think. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So you, Robin, can see behind me, I'm in a kind of a steel frame shed, and there's a piece of plywood somewhere there.
Yeah.
Where there should be a window. So we're not actually finished because the great people who built my shed, forgot after a year that there is a window in my workshop, and it's somewhere on the planet being made. So that's good. So
when they put the shed together, do they use full panels and cut the window out? I would have assumed that would be part of that panel would have it already pre-cut.
Well, essentially the cladding is just like corrugated iron or thereabouts. And so as they're putting it up on the walls, they've already framed out where the window is going to go, and then they just kind of cut the piece out that goes where the window is. Yeah, right, okay. But is the framing in place? Yeah, it's all there. Yeah, right. And so there was a couple of issues with the flashing kit that came with it, but then also the window itself just didn't show up. So that's somewhere. But they've got they've got 2 weeks, and then we're getting the final inspection to get this thing signed off, and so it's got to be done by then. But we've got air conditioning, and we've got 3-phase power on. Don't quite have the solar panels on yet, right? Because there was some miscommunication. But anyway, we're getting there. Yeah. And
Just going back to the solar, because we did talk about it briefly. You're getting someone
Yep.
to install it, right?
Yep. Yep.
With your shed, did you have to make sure that the shed was solar panel ready or engineered to take that?
I did, and I didn't expect it to be any kind of a problem because I think, steel frame shed, it's got a lightweight roof. Steel roofing is considered lightweight, but still everything, and it still weighs something. The solar panels can't be that heavy, and they're only about 20 kilos, maybe 20 kilos a panel or something like that. But I told the guys, and they said, "Oh well, we're going to have to re-engineer your whole roof." So they did that. It ended up costing us about $6,000 more, and it looks like all they did was put essentially double trusses through the middle of the building just to take extra load. They didn't put any other purlins or anything that I could tell. It is what it is. It cost me more money, and I had to get an engineer to look at it. So,
because I really want to put some solar panels on my place in Townsville, but the only bit I can is my lean-to deck, because my roof's asbestos. But I don't actually even know if that deck is on the plans, let alone is it solar panel ready. So I would assume I'm going to have to go to an engineer first, or I'd need to go to the solar panel company. They come out, have a look, say yay or nay. Is
it? Do you have the option of having a ground array? Sometimes you see.
I wouldn't do that. Yard's too small. It would be a bit of an eyesore.
Yeah, I know. I often wonder, sometimes I see it in rural areas, and there's just a whole paddock, kind of like a solar farm on the ground, and then you can see it links up to a house or something, and you can obviously get way more square meterage, but you really need to be using all of that power. So
or at least selling it back.
Because they seem to be really efficient these days. You seem to be able to get a lot out of a panel. So I don't think we're getting that much. I think maybe 12 panels or something. It's not that much. In terms of square meterage compared to what they say it's going to put out.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see when they hook it up. I've got a buddy who's got a solar setup. He's only had it for about 2 years, and he's checking it. How are we doing today? How are we doing this month? Month on month, how have we done? You can see where it was sunnier because we've had more solar power. So it'll be interesting to see how much you can actually pull out of it.
Yeah, I suspect this summer's going to be baking, so I think it'll be really good this summer and probably not so good in winter, but
we'll see. Good. So you put up a video on Instagram a week ago where you walked around.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That glass door, was that
from
Perspex? Oh, is it? Okay. Is that from your old shop?
No, I just put it together. We had some when we renovated the house here, those boards from the ceiling, kind of ceiling lining, it's like old Douglas fir, something like that, and we had to take a bunch out. And my dad, I wanted to just get rid of it because it looked awful. And my dad just kept it. He said, make your door out of it. So I just ran the belt sander over it, and because it had been in the kitchen, it was baked on with oil and grease and awful stuff. And then once I actually sanded it, I was like, oh, that's actually quite nice. Yeah. So, and it was tongue and groove, and the groove is just big enough to take the sheet of Perspex. So I just made it hold the Perspex and just screwed it together and chucked it on a barn door track, and that's awesome.
So it's a really big, so for everyone who hasn't seen it, it's a really big sliding door that you're using to separate your clean area from your cuts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dust area, yeah.
Any particular reason you went with Perspex? Just weight?
I kind of wanted to see. I didn't want it to feel like when you were working in the paint area that you were locked away from everything.
I mean instead of glass.
Oh, well, yeah. Dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, too hard. I mean, it would have cost a packet to get a piece of glass that big, and I'd have to have it it'd have to be safety glass or laminated, and it probably would have cost me $700 and $800 for a piece of glass, whereas that was like $180 for a piece of Perspex. So,
and I guess
almost a full sheet.
you're not really worried about sound with that division, because I'm just thinking because the sound properties of glass would surely be better than Perspex.
Yeah, that's not an issue really. It's just to block off some dust. And to be honest, we have an extractor fan in that clean room. So when we're spraying, we only spray water-based stuff. So it's just to try and get rid of some of the overspray. We've got a fan in there, venting outside, but it draws quite a lot of air. So you have to have some air coming into the room, so air can then be sucked out of the room. And so the barn doors are quite good because they're kind of gappy all the way around.
Yeah.
And it's just enough to let air come in. And typically in the workshop, because we've got extraction on everything, there's not dust just floating around everywhere. It's not a dust bomb. So I'm not too worried about dust being pulled through into the paint room. We'll see. But in my last workshop, it was far more rudimentary, and we never had any issues with dust landing on stuff. So
yeah, well, you think I'd say majority of workshop, well, certainly backyard workshops, there's no such thing as separation, and
that's right.
We can still get good finishes. Yeah. Well, that's I firstly didn't realize that you had just quickly thrown it together. I assumed it was a job that you had done. Not that you'd take it seriously, but something that you'd really put a lot of time and effort into. And I didn't realize that it was Perspex. So my first thought was, that's way too nice to be in a workshop.
Yeah, well, that's cool. It does look cool. And of course, the thing with Perspex is when you pull the plastic film off it, it just becomes instantly static. And already, like within a half a day, there's like this nice film of dust that's just clung to the plastic. So it's never going to be as clean as it was on that video. But while we were mentioning that paint room and spraying, so we've got pretty big into using airless sprayers for finishing our work, and we've been spraying. I think I've always used resin paint, Lusticryl they call it, which is a waterborne enamel. And the only problem is, if you're spraying that paint on a vertical surface, it just, no matter what you do, it just decides to sag after about 10 minutes.
Oh, right.
This big run that slops down. If you're spraying horizontal on flat things like doors and cabinet doors, it's perfectly fine. But they've just come out, Resin have come out with a spray grade Lusticryl. And it's comes in 10 litre buckets as well as 4, which is awesome for bigger jobs. But it does not run. Like we sprayed just before we moved to this workshop. I sprayed some giant barn doors for a job, and we sprayed them vertically so we could do them both sides at the same time. And this stuff is so good. You can just keep putting paint on, and it does not want to drip and sag on you. So
I wonder how they do that, because that's counterintuitive, because spraying's got to be watered down. It's got to be very
not this stuff.
Viscous.
Just out of the can. Yeah.
These airless sprays that you're talking about, are they the ones where you have a little reservoir that screws in underneath, and then you've got the handheld gun? Or is it a bigger version?
So you have a handheld gun, and I've got the most baby version of this sprayer. It's like the bottom tier. So you have a gun, but it has a hose that goes from the gun to the sprayer. And you put a hose into the paint bucket itself, and it just sucks the paint up and shoots it out. And so there's no compressor or anything. It has a motor which turns over, but even compared to an HVLP system, which sounds like a vacuum cleaner running, it's so quiet. It just runs every now and then when you pull the trigger. And the more you pull the trigger, the more the pump has to keep the pressure up. But it's just pressurizing the paint in the hose, and then it squirts out the nozzle.
I saw that I mean, obviously, I'm sure they've been around for a while, but I saw it for the first time in a Johnny Brooks video. And the other thing that struck me was one of the benefits is, with those ones where you've got that reservoir underneath, moving that amount of paint, you've got paint, coming out everywhere. You've got a bucket that now has paint it's heavy.
Yep.
So that just eliminates so much mess.
Everything.
Yeah.
The only downside, there's the one downside is that because of the PSI going through the hose, it's quite the hose is quite thick and it doesn't really want to flex where you want it to flex. So you're always struggling with the hose a little bit to get it right where you want. That doesn't matter so much because those machines are designed for like painting houses and stuff. It doesn't really matter. But when you're doing smaller pieces, you need a bit more flexibility, but it's not a massive issue. Cleaning up is pretty easy. Like when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, you've got to clean this whole hose out that's got paint in it. But you run 1.5 buckets of water through this thing and they're clean. It's actually very simple. And so quick.
And in terms of price, is that something that a DIYer would have in their arsenal, or is it a bit too expensive for that?
There's a bunch of ranges, and so I think Bunnings have got the Wagner versions, and they start at about 900. I mean, you can get ones for probably 300 or 400, but they're getting pretty dicey down at that range. From about $1,000, you can get something that's going to do like you paint your house fine. My one cost $2,000, and then from there, price just kind of keeps going up. I talked to a painter a couple of weeks back on a job site, and his one, a commercial one, was $8,000, but it had like a computer on it and everything, and it tells you when it needs to be cleaned, and it does all this and that, and that's for all day, everyday use, and you just don't need something that big. And there's obviously pros to spending more money on some of these machines. They do different things, but typically all we need to do is put paint on a panel, and that's about it.
Because the other thing then is going to be the nozzle. Now, I've got one of those Wagners with the reservoir. Well, I had one. I sold it. And it was great. I would have no problem doing my house. I'd have no problem doing my fence. Don't know if I'd feel comfortable putting some varnish or something like that on, because that nozzle just, as you say,
too big.
It's putting paint out. That's all it's doing.
So there's a range of nozzle sizes. And I've got the smallest one, which is a 310, and that is really good for putting on paints. It's best for clear coat, the 310. I mean, that's a very small orifice, that number. Now you maybe go back to school. I think. So for 310, I think what the 3 part of it means is it references the width of the fan. And so you take the 3 and double it, which is 6. And it's going to give you a 6-inch fan. Okay,
seems logical.
And then the 12 part is the size of the orifice, which I believe means it's either 0.12 of a mil or 1.2 mil, something like that. And then so generally those sprayers come with a 520 or 5. It's a really big orifice, and it's like for painting your fence. You just want lots of paint to go out on and hit the rough sawn stuff. You don't want to spray anything delicate with that. It's just going to be dripping in paint. And it's just a matter of talking to whoever you buy it from and what you want to do. And they seem to have it covered. They have nozzles for all different types of stuff. It's just a crazy aside, because we talked about the spray room, and I thought I'd mention that spray grade paint, because if anyone's using those sprayers, that spray grade stuff is just completely different. It's awesome.
And presumably, if Resine is coming out with a version, any brand you're using out there will probably have a version now.
Possibly. I have been told that the spray grade version is for trade only. And I don't know how it seems weird if someone asks for it, if they just say, oh, you can't have it if you don't have an account. But
show me your fluoro jumper.
Yeah, exactly. Wear your work boots. But so I don't even have a full account with Resine. I've got a cash account, which means I just get a discount, but I have to pay then and there. And they didn't even ask the question. They just said, yeah, sure, how much do you want? So,
and as they become more popular technologies and more people are using them in their workshop, then talking about the door, I want to tackle a barn door when I get back to Townsville, but maybe 3.2 meter tall barn door. Do you think that's going to be an issue from wood movement? Is that door going to eventually warp, or can you do it? I guess, or should you do it?
Sky is the limit. I did some 3.5 meter tall ones, and they turned into bananas. But that was because the client was very specific about what they wanted the door to be made out of, and sometimes warnings aren't heeded, so couldn't really do anything about it. Luckily, one of them bowed away from the wall, and one of them bowed towards the wall. So one of them was binding, and the other one wasn't. So, I would just, how much? 3.2.
Yeah, probably about 3.2 at the max.
How wide?
900. So it's a single.
Okay.
It's going to be a funny looking door, but I just thought it could be a nice piece. So I don't want it to be painted. I want it to be timber. But presumably the timber you use, the grain, how straight the grain is going to be huge. But is there construction techniques that you have to keep in mind when you're building one on that size? Or does it just come down to the wood?
But it really comes down to the style of the door, I think. I think the ones that start to cause issues are when people want like a flat door that's like V-grooved or something like that, which we just did a bunch of paint grade ones. And so for paint grade, we just used a lightweight poplar plywood core and then skinned it with MDF, cut some V's in it, painted it. And it's going to stay pretty flat, and that's pretty light. Even then, they're still pretty heavy because it's a lot of material.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start going into the 3 meter range, you do have to consider, I think it's really just species and timber straightness, like grain straightness. Like you could get, if you used like Vic Ash, because typically Vic Ash is quarter sawn, what it is here, that would probably stay pretty bloody straight over that length. And if you had like a frame and then filled some panels in that, it would probably be fine.
That was pretty much the style I was thinking of. Was a traditional,
an actual
railing style. Door, yeah. But yeah, I've seen door builders in the past where people make the styles up with multiple pieces and then glue them together which I would assume is in
you could do it that way.
They
veneer them. That's one way to do it. I've not done it. That didn't cross my mind. That is a way to do it. There's a lot more labor involved. The good thing is that there's a couple of benefits for that, because you can use cheaper timber and like essentially make a glue laminated stock, which isn't going to move. You're essentially making big plywood, and then you're veneering it with expensive stuff, but not using much of it because it's veneer. And so you can get a really expensive look for not quite so much cost, but there is a lot more labor involved still. But that would be a way to go. You could make up a blank out of like Vic Ash, for example.
Yeah.
Quarter sawn, glue lamp some bits together, and then typically I think they veneer it all before they do the joinery, and then and then put it together. Depends how fancy you want it to look.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna cross that bridge obviously when I get back, but it's it was just something I was thinking about, whether it's the space is an entryway into a bathroom area. So you walk through that door and then you get into this small 900 by 900 kind of foyer, which goes into the toilet, and then to the right goes into the bathroom. But now that foyer is open to the kitchen, which is it's a bit shitty. It's the way they made the houses back then. So I want to put a big door there. Now when I renovated my house and made it open plan, that foyer had a wall that was an opening, and the opening was 2 meters, 2.1 what a normal door height would be, and I pushed it all the way up to just about the ceiling. We've got these crazy high ceilings. So my option is to bring that wall back down, and then I would have a normal barn door, which would be 2.1, 2.2 meters. But I really want to keep that height, because then it would be a nice piece. The barn door would be because you'll see that barn door in the kitchen, so it'll be a nice statement piece. But that's why I was just wondering if it was something that could be done, or it's just a really bad idea?
Yeah, I'd go for it. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think you just need to just consider what happens. I think the benefit for you is that you understand wood, and you understand that one design has pros and cons depending on things like size. And so if you just modify your expectations and your design to suit what can actually be built there, it's a bit different. If a client says to you, I just want this because that's how it has to look, and you kind of say, well, look, you're pushing the boundaries of what may or may not happen. As long as you understand that this all might turn to bananas, then let's go for it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can only be as careful as you can be. I mean, at the worst case, what you could do is use, you know, those kind of steel strongbacks that people sometimes put into underneath tables. You could do something like that if you were worried about it warping, particularly at that height. You're going to have a lot of hot air up by the ceiling, and so your door will be almost always hotter at the top than the bottom. It may be worth considering putting a steel like T section down the back of the stiles, and it might hold it straighter. I don't know if it's worth the effort, or you could even put like angle iron down the corner of down the edge of the door.
I hadn't thought of that.
It would be a design feature almost.
I had thought about the strongbacks, as you call them. I had thought about running those, but yeah, if you wrap the corners in them, then it just becomes a design. That's a good idea.
You have like a industrial modern type edge to your door, which could be interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the workshop. So you posted just before the show. I saw a post that you've actually got your first project going. How did the move go? So you're all in?
We're all in. All I've got to do is go back to the old place and do a final sweep up, which is good. It's good to be out of there. The move was, it could have been way worse because
that's a way to describe it.
Yeah, well, because the workshop is where I live now. Every night I'd just put something in the van and bring it home.
Yeah.
And so by the time it came to renting the truck for the day, all that was really left was a couple of benches and the big machines. And we had 4 of us and rented the worst truck you've ever driven in your life. And I only had to drive like 250 Ks for the day. But anyway.
Worse in what way?
Yeah, we managed...
Worse in what way?
Oh, the truck was just undrivable. Like the seat was barely bolted in. It didn't go fast. Like there's no suspension. You know, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a big truck and it carried what we had to.
Did it have a lift at the back?
Yeah, that specifically had a tail lift, which only barely lifted my press and the table saw.
Yeah, because yours would be pushing it. Hey, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So as we lifted, or tried to lift at the bottom, the truck starts going closer to the ground, and the saw doesn't start coming up. You're like, oh shit!
Well, I'm trying to remember what the weight rating was on those. I've got a ton in my head, but it couldn't have been.
Well, this one is it's a kind of a shitty older version, and I rang when I rented the truck. I asked the guys. I said, "Oh, look, the manual for my saw says it's about 600 kilos." Which actually I lied, it was more like 750, but I didn't want to push it too much. And and they said, oh, that's right on the limit. I don't know if it will handle it. I was like, oh, that should be right. And it did just handle it. So,
yeah, sure.
But, oh, God. I had to end up taking the whole slider off. I didn't want to take the whole sliding mechanism off my saw because it's all set up. But we couldn't get it in the truck without taking the slider off the main body of the saw. So I spent
one of those big moving vans.
Yeah, well, because it's 3 meters long. The whole sliding mechanism's 3 meters long, and we can only lift it from the center where the main.
Yeah, right. Of course.
Part of and so you can't just kind of, pallet jacks don't really work like that. It was just easier. So I just said, stuff it. Give me the spanners. Let's take it off. And I spent yesterday morning
pain in the ass.
Putting it back together. And I think it's cutting square again. So I need to do some.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like when you have a saw like that set up, so many bits involved, and you've just got to.
I know.
Now you're going to spend the next 2 months wondering if you're a square, and every time you go back for a cut, was it square from the last one? Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, I think that's good to go. So
you took
what was that?
1 day to do all the big tools?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And then we spent probably over the course of 3 days setting up workbenches, putting shelves on the wall, and kind of working out where stuff would actually live. In that video that was on Instagram, there was I've got a new big rack for my panel goods. It's like a blue and green rack that you might see in a warehousing situation. That was in the middle of the room as a bit of a divider, but after putting everything in place, we all agreed that it was not in the right place, so we had to dismantle that, shift it to the other end of the saw, and set that back up. What it does mean, though, once our flat plywood goods are on the shelf, we can just slide them right off the shelf, right onto the sliding table saw, which means we essentially don't have to lift them, which is awesome. Cool. So that's a bit of a bonus. So.
And those sheet goods, is that sort of 16 mil ply that you would use for kitchen? So you just in and out
kitchen
of it.
Carcasses and stuff. And as much as I would rather not be building that kind of thing, that seems to be the work that's coming in, and it's good money. So
bills don't pay
I'll keep
themselves.
taking them on.
And then in terms of that's your cut area all taken care of. Your clean room, is that set up?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, I've got a fan, extraction fan set in there. We bought the racking system I had from the old workshop. We bought the racks that were there and added a few extra ones. So we've got like 50 shelves for racking, but they're a bit old and crummy. I'll have to upgrade them at some point. Because they're not the best use of space, but they are shelves. So we will we'll live with them for a little while longer.
And then the office is just that window. That's the last thing. Yeah,
just need a window, and I've stored. You can't see just to the left of me. I need to put a little kitchenette area in. So this room is about 3 or 4 meters square. Which is a decent sized room.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little bit of a kitchenette, and I've got some room to put some pieces of furniture and stuff like that in. And so I'm all set up. I've actually got a class booked for the 18th, so I've got like 2 weeks.
Oh, cool.
And I've got a class there already, so that'd be interesting. I haven't done a class in ages.
With it being on your property now, is it a different story from a liability perspective? No, it doesn't matter. Don't ask that question.
No, who's asking questions? I guess I didn't even think, to be honest, about doing a bit of a safety run through, but obviously I'll have to do something like that. If you have a noob come into the workshop, you need to run through some things. But this particular guy just wants to build his own kitchen, and he lives way out in the middle of nowhere, and so he said, can I come and learn the basics of how to build some cabinets and the do's and don'ts, and then I'll go back and try and make my own kitchen. So that'll be interesting. And
the lighting's all good? It's all sufficient?
Yeah, I think we made some pretty good choices on the lights. I'm happy with the color. We could do with maybe one more light above the workbenches, but we're going to add some wall lighting as well.
All LED?
All LED. And man, the air conditioner is struggling at the moment because it's just baking down. But
how long's it been running? How long has it been running for now, the AC? Because I'm just thinking about the dust concern that you had.
We've only had it on today's the first full day we've had the aircon on since 8 o'clock.
Right, okay.
Because it was really nice and cool this morning, and I thought if I get the aircon on early and to try and keep it cool, but after about 11 o'clock the sun kind of takes over and starts heating up.
Yeah, because I guess being a tin shed, it just radiates. Yeah.
I forgot. I actually did pay extra for a heat reflective building paper, roofing paper. So the top side's foil and underneath is white. There's no way to tell if it's helping, but I hope it's doing something.
When I put the bats, the wool, rock wool stuff, I don't know, earth wool, that's the one. Insulation, when I posted about it on Instagram, everyone said to me, "Oh, you're going to notice it's going to make such a difference. It's going to be such a big difference." The problem is because the temperatures vary so much, and the way I installed it was in pieces. I'm still to this day not actually sure if it made a difference. It's really hard to tell how much of a difference it actually made. Because it's funny, the reflective, that sarking they call it. Everyone said, put that in. That is one of the biggest for the Queensland climate. It's one of the biggest improvements you can make because it's all about reflective heat.
Yeah. It's interesting. Insulation. So I was originally going to have my dust collection in the main workshop, but it just was noisy and whatever. So we ended up making a small shed outside. It's like 3 meters by like 1.5 meter shed. And we've got my dust extractor out there, and we decided to put the air compressor out there. And both of them are kind of noisy. And so I decided I would try. I went and bought some full sheets of polystyrene, like 2.4 by 1.2 sheets, 50 mil thick. That's like $40 a sheet or something. And I cut them really tight, cut it all, and put it all lined the whole inside of the that little shed, and it has dramatically changed how noisy, especially the air compressor is. I mean, it's taken it down to almost not even really a noise to worry about. So it's interesting. I didn't realize how effective polystyrene was. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could double it up, and it would be almost completely silent. I mean,
I didn't realize polystyrene worked on audio. I've always heard it's about density. So if you'd lined it with fiber cement sheet, I've seen guys use. There's a product. It's like gyprock or jib, but it's made with sand. So you put that on your ceilings. Again, it's all about that density.
Right. Well, see, polystyrene has some density to it. Certainly more density than nothing. So if you compared it with nothing, it's going to be thicker. But also, I think polystyrene has a softer surface, and I don't think it's as reflective audibly as, say, something like a solid plywood or plasterboard sheet would be. It doesn't reflect the sound back as much. I think it might absorb more. So because it's kind of got all those little dimples all over it, maybe that's what's doing it more. But I was surprised how well it worked. It only took me a couple of hours to line it out, and it has done a lot for the noise around here. So that's pretty cool.
So now you've presumably punched a hole through the wall for a 6-inch or 100 mil pipe to come through. How do you turn? You just have it on a remote.
Well, we used to have it so when you opened a gate, there was a switch on the gate which relayed back. But now the way we have the extractor set up, everything kind of just comes off one big trunk that comes into the main room, and everything is coming right from one place. We essentially only have one gate that we need to, or maybe two gates. So we just have hardwired the extractor on, and the main power switch is on the inside of the workshop.
Right.
And so we just turn the 3-phase on and off, and that's how we turn the extractor on.
Yeah, okay.
Because typically we turn it on and then it's on for 3 hours or something, and then you turn it off. So
and then
it's not like it's on and off all day.
Yeah. And then it's still going into a bag in the extractor?
Yeah, we've got two big. My one takes two 250 litre bags.
I've often thought about, because I've thought about putting mine outside as well. If you were to run your extractor, but just you don't filter it at all. So you suck it out and you put a pipe sort of facing the ground. And you put a
gigantic pile.
You put a box around it so it doesn't fly away, and you just have a pile there, and then you come along with a spade and get rid of it like that.
You could do that. I don't think. I mean, you'd have to kind of modify the whole machine a little bit, because you don't really want. The way certainly my machine is set up, you wouldn't want it just to fall right underneath where it is. But I think Frank Howarth has essentially done that, where his extractor just goes into like a cupboard in the corner.
Yeah,
and
but he's still doing his filtering.
It
He's still filtering in the workshop. So that's what I mean. So just to get rid of the filtering, all you've got is a giant extractor. It just extracts everything out.
Yeah,
and dumps it outside.
Actually, that's a good point. Like, because I've still got like those cartridge filters, they call it, with the zigzaggy filters.
Pleats.
The pleats. And I cleaned them out really well when we shifted, which was crazy how much stuff came out of them. But yeah, thinking about it, because it's not like we're in that little shed working for any length of time, it doesn't need to be filtered. We could just vent it out outside.
Your pump, and I could be wrong here, but your pump would be under less load because it's not having to push the air through those pleats.
I think you're right, and it probably would be quieter still because it's not what do they call it? Not laboring to work to suck the air and to push it back out through the pleats.
Yeah,
that'd be an interesting experiment to take the filters off and just see what happens.
And if you had a big enough property, you wouldn't even have to worry about managing the dust. The dust could just sort of float away out the back of the shop, because if your neighbours are far away.
We're on 5 acres. I mean, the nearest neighbour is about 400 meters. We can see them, but they're 400 meters away. I doubt that would be a problem. Maybe it might be a problem if that blows up onto the washing line. That could be a bit of
it's maybe
slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's cool. That's the last time we talked, you said you reckon it was going to take you a week to move in, and you were a bit apprehensive about it. So pretty much took a week, and it was easy.
Yeah. I think there's a point when you shift. Like, I've shifted so many times my houses growing up, and there's always a point where at one, like your old place still feels like your place, and then suddenly you take one thing, and for me it was taking my workbench. Once my workbench shifted to the new place, I was like, oh, I'm over the hump. Yeah. Now that's the place, and this is the old place. And it was just a matter of cleaning up. It's a weird mental kind of hurdle where all of a sudden you just say, right, that's it. I'm taking this thing, and now we're doing it. Yeah. And it's a strange feeling to just go push yourself through it and do it.
Yeah. Now that's just a room now. That's just a workshop.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
There's no attachment. It's just and in fact, I couldn't get out of there fast enough, really. As soon as we got it empty, I was just like, God, I hate this place. Let's get out of here.
So how close are you to the house from the shop?
We had to put 35 meters of power cable in, so about 35 meters.
And are you, because you originally worked from home and then you moved to this workshop that was off-site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you happy to be back next to the house?
Yeah. It's so surreal. I was just saying to my wife, it's after talking about doing this for so bloody long, and then now I just have to meander down the path and I'm at work. It's crazy to be in this situation. It's very, very rewarding after working to get to here for forever. So I'm super pleased that I did it, and I wish everybody could have the experience of not having to sit in traffic.
Kids must be stoked. Dad's home.
Yeah.
All the time.
You can imagine what it's like. Go up to get a cup of tea, or at the moment I can't make a cup of tea, so I go up to the house. And, oh, Dad, can you play with me just for 10 minutes? And it's like, yeah, not really, but all right.
Yeah. Oh, but that's such a beautiful thing, though. Like, they'll love that in years to come.
Yes, I think so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to bring up?
I did want to talk about a job, but maybe we should save it and get Bryan's input.
We're kind of running out of season here, but we can, because next week we might be, next show we might be getting an international guest, which is exciting.
Yes.
And then the week after, or the fortnight after that, we're going to be doing our final show, which is going to be a live stream. We'll just give a quick plug for it now. So that would be the 30th of November. I did that poll on Instagram to see who was interested. It was way more 50-50 than I thought it was going to be. I don't know how. It wasn't a whole lot of people that responded, so I don't know how indicative it is of our entire audience. But I just think it was enough to say let's go for it. So that'll be on the 30th of November around 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And then that's pretty much it for the episode. So maybe we can discuss it with our guest next week.
Well, I tell you what, why don't I talk about it now? Maybe people can message us or message the Shop Stool Podcast on Instagram and maybe give their 2 cents. So I'll quickly describe what I have to do, and then everyone else listening can tell me how to do my job. It'll be really good. I have to build a TV kind of wall unit, which is a standard kind of thing. TV in the middle, some shelving, and in this case, the client wants specifically so it's going to be painted top shelving, painted below, but the top, kind of the bench top part of it is going to be, she wants oak, and she wants it to be live edge, like a live edge slab.
Okay.
So I cannot get live edge slabs of oak. It's not how it comes into the country. It comes in sawn boards. So I said to her, it's possible that we could glue up a big hunk of oak and we can cut the edge and kind of grind it away and make it look wavy and
interesting,
kind of fake live edge. And we're going to be using a grade of timber which is all knotty. So she said she was happy to have knots and fill them with epoxy. She wants it to look like it's a big old hunk of oak. So obviously the best option would be to have a slab and cut it. So that's out of the equation unless somebody has got a whole tree of oak kicking around in New Zealand. I doubt they have.
And when you say oak, I mean, there's lots of oaks. Does she want American white oak?
Yeah, American white oak. Because that's what the flooring is, and she wants it to match, but she wants it to have live edge. So my question really is, I have seen it done before, kind of a man-made live edge, and it looks reasonable. It's a thing. Should I bother trying to like bleach the edge of it and make it look like the sappy wood on the edge of a slab? I mean, how far do I take it to really like get arty with it, or should I just kind of like draw some wavy lines and jigsaw it out and then take a grinder to it and kind of put bevels and undercuts? I don't know how far, or if there's a technique anyone has had, if they've had to try and do this thing before, if there's a way that's worked and a way that hasn't worked. Obviously, it needs to look half decent, but everyone is of the understanding that it's not a real live edge, but it would be good if it looked that way. So
that's a really interesting one. I'm sure there must be people who've tried this. Yeah. There has to be.
There must be. Like I say, I've seen it in a shop on some walnut on a table, and I was like, that's not a real live edge. But, do I just notice it because I know what it looks like, or what?
Yeah, because that's really it's interesting you mentioned the bleaching, because that was the first thing that I thought was there's without the sapwood, the illusion's gone.
So that's, maybe I should, because usually, the sappy part might be an inch or so thick down the edge, and if you somehow kind of masked it off and actually bleached it and changed the color of the timber, would that help in trying to make it appear more realistic? Or if someone has done it, let me know. Give any of us a message and let me know if I'm just going about it the wrong way.
What if you got a different timber and you you got a curved pattern, so you routed and then glued the front on
some blondie
kind of
timber
pine
on the
or
front.
something, or maybe not pine, but because your
ash is very blonde and it has a very similar grain structure.
Because your sapwood line is
carve most of it away.
That's a hard line where it changes from hardwood to sapwood. Typically, so it's not
And it wouldn't have to be all the way along. It's not like you get a perfect sap edge on boards, it runs off and
True.
stuff, you know. So that would be an interesting, you know, if someone's got some idea of how I might go about it, that would be nice.
Out of interest, what do you think importing that slab would cost, or is that way off budget?
I have no idea. I would say at least $5,000. I mean, the slab itself is probably $5,000. When you see what the prices these American guys are paying for this stuff, it's probably more like $10,000.
Give Mac Ramona a call. I'm sure he's got some lying in his.
I'm sure he does. In his gigantic new shed that he's building.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, interested to hear what people have to say. That that would make for a very interesting video.
Yes, I probably would. I should do that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll even make a video of that one.
Wow. Cool. All right. Well, this very short episode turned into an average-sized episode. So that's cool. Yeah. All right. Well, just once again, obviously, big congratulations to Bryan and Lani on Zola, number 2. We're really excited. Looking forward to having him on the show. Hopefully the next episode. Obviously, we're going to have to play this by ear, but we will have a guest on as well if all goes to plan. And book your calendars for the 30th of November at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We'll do a live stream on Instagram, so if you want to come along and be involved in the chat, we'll make it a thing. We'll make it a big one.
We will do a thing, yep.
Cool. All right, everyone. Take care.
All right.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.
You know what I just remembered as well? This is the 100th episode. We didn't even mention it.